Hey guys, tonight we slip through time and step barefoot onto warm, sun-soaked stone. You're standing on the cracked marble floor of a forgotten temple. Its once gold altar, now overrun by ivy, but the light it still burns. You feel it on your skin, as if the sun has fingers. A presence presses against your back, radiant, unblinking, and unnervingly calm. That's Apollo. He doesn't knock. He arrives. His chariot blazes through the morning, like a comet that never ends. Horses made of fire, reins woven from morning mist. The sun doesn't rise on its own. It's dragged across the sky by a god who's both astonishingly beautiful and just a little full of himself. And you're tagging along for the ride. But heads up, ancient Greece was gorgeous and savage. You're dealing with beings who don't think twice about turning a dude into a shrub or chucking a plague at a city because someone sang off key. You probably won't survive this. But hey, that's part of the fun. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop your location and what time it is where you're watching. Let's see who's up late with us across the globe. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You open your eyes into pure light. Not just sunlight. This is divine radiance. The kind that gets sculpted into halos centuries later. That's how your journey with Apollo begins. Not in a cave or a cradle, but in a blinding storm of gold. Apollo isn't just any god. He's a concept in motion, beauty that walks, music that breathes, sunlight that thinks. He's the ultimate multitasker of the Olympian crew, god of light, music, healing, prophecy, archery, poetry, plague, order, and probably great skincare. No joke, he literally glows. You get the feeling he's the kind of guy who brings his own lighting to a party. He was born, like all legends, in Chios. Picture this, the island of Delos, bobbing in the sea, like a stone on restless water. It wasn't anchored to anything, just drifting in the Aegean like a lost soul. The Titaness Leto is pregnant by Zeus. Naturally, because that guy has serious boundary issues, and nobody wants her around. Hera, Zeus' long-suffering wife, bans any land from sheltering her. So Delos, sympathetic, or just opportunistic, and says, sure, and lets her land, and then the labor starts. Now, most mythological births get a poetic gloss, golden sparkles, angelic choirs, maybe a cow for ambiance. Not Apollo. His birth takes 9 days. 9, the kind of birth that makes even immortal doulas nervous. His twin sister Artemis is born first. She immediately helps deliver her brother. Because again, Greek gods don't waste time being helpless. And when Apollo finally emerges into the light, it's not crying, it's singing. Legend says the whole island lit up, rooted itself to the ocean floor, and the air filled with music the moment he drew breath. No pressure. Right, you're still standing there. Delos, beneath your feet. It's warm, humming. You realize the island itself is sacred now, a kind of divine docking station for Apollo's energy. Even a century later, Romans and wandering mystics make pilgrimages here. They come for the echoes, the music, maybe just the bragging rights. The thing is, Apollo doesn't stay a baby for long. No swaddling cloths or pacifiers. He's practically sprinting before he's even had his first ambrosia bottle. One story says he drinks nectar and instantly becomes a glowing teenager. Harp in one hand and bow in the other. You look at your own baby pictures and suddenly feel like an underachiever. Historians still argue whether Apollo's youth was meant to mirror the ideal Greek boy, bright, beautiful, deadly with a bow, or if he represented something more eternal, a moment of golden adolescence stretched forever across the heavens. Either way, this god doesn't age like mortals do. He becomes an eternal young man poised between impulsive beauty and terrifying maturity. And you notice something strange. Unlike Zeus, who thunders and cheats and rages, or Hades, who lurks in the dark corners of the underworld. Apollo doesn't yell. He shines. His anger comes quiet and precise, like sunlight through a magnifying glass. He doesn't need tantrums, he just watches. And when he acts, it's with alarming calm. There's a fringe theory some scholars toss around that Apollo was originally an imported god, brought to Greece from the Near East. His name doesn't quite fit with other Olympians. And the whole package prophecy, light, music smells a little foreign. But if he was imported, he got the deluxe mythological citizenship package. Because once Apollo arrives, he changes everything. You begin to notice how tightly Apollo is woven into daily Greek life. Farmers pray to him for the right balance of sun and rain. Doctors invoke his name to stop plagues or start them, depending on who's praying. Poets beg for his favor before reciting epic verse. And warriors, they want his accuracy. One well-aimed arrow could shift the outcome of a war. But don't think he's all light and praise songs. Apollo's light reveals things not always pleasant. The truth, the rot under the surface, the thing you wish you hadn't seen. That's why he's the god of prophecy too. The oracle doesn't speak sweet fortunes. She shrieks the truth. Cryptic and burning. Truth that sears like sun on bare stone. Still, it's hard not to like him. He's got that golden retriever energy, wrapped in ancient royalty vibes. And there's music, always music. He invents songs, comment, choir, and inspires the muses. You feel it in your ribs when he plays his lyre notes that vibrate through your bones and rearrange the shape of your dreams. You reach toward that music now, not just hearing it, feeling it, ripple the air. Your fingers stretch out, maybe trying to touch the strings, but it's not quite real. The melody's fading. The golden temple begins to flicker, like a candle about to blow out. The light doesn't disappear. It just folds back into the sky. You're left blinking, breathless. You've only just met Apollo, and already he's slipped away again, like sun through trees. He's never entirely yours to hold. But don't worry, we're following him, through serpents and cities, plagues and poems. The story's only just begun. You squint into the brightness, as the light shifts less blinding now. More like morning, warming your face through a linen curtain. Apollo isn't alone in his divine spotlight. Just off to your right, half hidden in olive trees and moonlight, stands someone who looks a lot like him, only cooler, quieter, and way better with a bow. That's Artemis, his twin. She's the reason you never sleep well on a full moon. She's the archer of shadows, the protector of wild things, the hunter who doesn't miss, and she arrived first. Their birth is a kind of mythic relay race. Leto, their Titan mother, after 9 days of exhausting labor, gives birth to Artemis under a date palm on Delos. The moment Artemis is born, she's up and walking because baby gods don't crawl. Remember, and then Immediately, she helps deliver Apollo. Let's pause here. This is one of those moments where historians still argue whether the Artemis midwifing Apollo detail was original, or if later poets tacked it on to flex her feminist wilderness energy. But honestly, who's going to question the goddess of childbirth, assisting in her own twins' birth? That's peak multitasking. The twins are close, like psychic connection. Divine inside jokes. Close. They share more than just parents. Their bond hums through every myth. Their opposites and reflections. Sun and moon. Music and silence. Harmony and hunt, where Apollo is golden light. Artemis is silver night. Their father, Zeus, isn't exactly around for diaper changes. He's busy managing storms, throwing lightning, and cheating on his wife. Their mother Leto, on the other hand, is a study in patience and power. After all, she gave birth while being chased across continents by a giant snake, and we complain when our phones overheat. Speaking of snakes, you remember the python from earlier. It was Hera's not-so-subtle way of saying, "You're not welcome here." She sends this massive, slithering beast after Leto to stop the twins from ever being born. It lurks near Delphi, a steaming swamp full of sulfur and prophetic nightmares. Leto survives. Barely. But the python's days are numbered. Apollo's already dreaming of vengeance. Before that, though, there's the matter of growing up. You'd think a childhood with superpowers and a twin would be all laurel wreaths and sun-drenched meadows. Not exactly. The twins are divine. Sure, but their childhood myths are strangely quiet. Almost like the world is holding its breath before the spotlight really hits them. But here's a fringe detail. Not everyone knows some ancient texts suggest that Apollo and Artemis spent time hidden away in Hyperborea, a mythical paradise beyond the north wind, a land of eternal daylight and joy, where mortals couldn't follow. You wonder, is this where they learned to shine and hunt and sing, or was it just a god-level vacation? Fast forward a few years, divine aging works differently. Remember, and the twins re-enter the mythological stage as fully formed forces of nature. And now, finally, Apollo has a reason to act. The Python, guardian of the old earth goddess's oracle at Delphi, still breathes, still coils, still remembers Leto, and Apollo's had enough. He descends on Delphi with a bow strung from light and arrows forged from starfire. The python is huge, like horror movie. Oh no, we're going to need a bigger temple, huge, coiled in the cavern. It reeks of ancient rot and future doom. Apollo doesn't hesitate. Hedros fires. Again. The arrows hit with musical precision, each strike a chord of cosmic vengeance. When the final arrow pierces the beast's skull, the earth rumbles. The old gods of the underworld shudder. Apollo has killed something sacred, and he knows it, which means he has to atone. Yep, even gods have to say sorry. He cleanses himself. A ritual act that echoes through Greek temple practice forever. Purification after bloodshed. Even divine bloodshed. Especially divine bloodshed. But here's the kicker. Apollo doesn't just walk away from the oracle of Delphi. He claims it. The very site that once worshipped the Earth Mother Gaia now pulses with his presence. He builds a temple, installs a priestess, the Pythia, and starts dispensing prophecies that shake empires. Talk about career moves. This is also where the twins begin to diverge in style. Artemis goes into the woods deep, sacred, howling places. She gathers nymphs, stalks deer, and avoids men like their cursed mushrooms. Apollo builds cities. He inspires laws, arts, healing. He wants to illuminate. You start to sense it. Apollo's not just light for light's sake. He's order, structure, elegance. If chaos is darkness, he's the geometry of dawn. But he's not perfect. He's proud, intensely so. And while Artemis is all cool distance and savage protection, Apollo starts to crave attention. He needs people to know he's the god of light, that he's beautiful, that he's right. This will not go well later, but for now, it fuels a golden age. And then, because the gods are never still, the twins move outward. Apollo's temples bloom like sunflowers across the Greek world, on Delos, Delphi, Rhodes, and Didyma. In each one, you feel his presence, columns lined, like a harp, light flooding every crevice, inscriptions warning that those who enter must be pure. There's a chill in that warning. Apollo's light isn't always gentle. He doesn't tolerate deception. He sees what you'd rather leave hidden, and when he shines too bright, it burns. Still, you can't help but follow. Maybe it's the music. Maybe it's the warmth. Maybe it's that quiet whisper in the back of your mind that says he knows something you don't, and that something is coming. You walk with Apollo now, the air crisp with anticipation. His next move is no mere stroll through a sunlit grove. It's a direct confrontation with a primordial terror. Delphi, nestled on the slopes of Mount Parnassus, is no ordinary place. It's a crossroads of the divine and the mortal, a labyrinth of whispers, shadows, and secrets. The python, you recall, isn't just a giant snake. It's a symbol of old, chthonic power, tied to Gaia herself, the Earth Mother. When Apollo slays it, he's not just killing a monster, he's claiming a spiritual throne. And with it, the power of prophecy. This act sets the stage for one of history's most iconic sites, the Oracle of Delphi. Imagine standing in the temple, the thick scent of laurel and burning bay leaves swirling in the air. The Pythia, the priestess of Apollo, sits on a tripod over a crack in the earth, inhaling mysterious vapors that send her into ecstatic trances. Her words, sometimes cryptic, often puzzling, are believed to be the god speaking directly. You might be surprised to learn that some modern scholars argue whether these prophetic fumes came from natural gases seeping from the fault lines below, or if the trance was more of a psychological state, induced by ritual and expectation. The mystery persists, like a whisper you almost catch, but never fully hear. Apollo's role here is complex. He's the ultimate patron of prophecy, but he's also the one who installed this system, shaping the oracle into a political and religious powerhouse. Kings and commoners alike would travel great distances, desperate for his guidance, knowing that his prophecies could sway the fate of cities and entire civilizations. But don't be fooled by the serenity of this scene. Apollo's presence carries a serious edge. His light reveals uncomfortable truths, not just pleasant predictions. The oracle might bless a king's reign or curse it, depending on what Apollo decides. The god is merciless when it comes to justice and truth, embodying a balance between healing and punishment. And while you absorb this solemn power, Apollo's youth and charm remain undeniable. His lyre's soft melody drifts through the temple halls, a reminder that beauty and terror often dance hand in hand. Speaking of that lyre, Let's take a detour into music, the lifeblood of Apollo's divine persona. Imagine this, a pastoral scene. Sunlight filtering through olive branches as a young Hermes. Cunning and mischievous, even in infancy, invents the lyre from the shell of a giant tortoise. He fashions strings from sheep guts, a delicacy that would horrify modern musicians. But hey, it's ancient Greece. Hermes gifts this strange instrument to Apollo, and suddenly, the god of light becomes the god of music too. There's a legend that Apollo traded a herd of cattle for the lyre, an exchange that's as weird as it sounds. You start to think even gods barter, and even gods have to negotiate for their talents. Apollo's mastery of the lyre becomes a defining trait. His music is said to soothe the savage beast, literally, calm storms, and even heal wounds. He's the patron of musicians, poets, and dancers, inspiring art that aims to capture the essence of light and harmony. But here's a quirky tidbit. Some ancient tales suggest Apollo was a bit of a perfectionist and quite the diva when it came to music contests. Remember Marsyas a Satyr, who foolishly challenged Apollo to a musical duel. It didn't end well. Marsyas lost and was punished in a gruesome way, flayed alive. As myth has it, historians still debate whether this story symbolizes the dangers of hubris or reflects some ancient ritualistic practice. In any case, Apollo's music embodies order, balance, and civilization's triumph over chaos. His lyre's notes echo through temples, festivals, and courts across Greece, setting a rhythm that mortals aspire to but rarely master. As you follow Apollo's melody, the scene shifts to a less harmonious aspect of his nature, love, and loss. Despite his radiant beauty and charm, Apollo's romantic escapades are famously fraught with tragedy. You might chuckle at the tale of Daphne, a nymph determined never to be caught in love's net. When Apollo, smitten and persistent, chases her through forests, she prays for escape and is transformed into a laurel tree, Apollo's sacred symbol. Now, every victor's crown of laurel is a bittersweet reminder of a love that could never be. Then there's Hyacinthus, a beautiful youth loved dearly by Apollo. A tragic accident during a discus game leads to Hyacinthus's death, and from his spilled blood springs the hyacinth flower. These myths intertwine love, jealousy, and mourning, revealing Apollo's deeply human emotions beneath his godly exterior. Historians still argue whether these stories were invented to explain the origins of certain plants, or to explore themes of unattainable love and grief within ancient Greek culture. Either way, they enrich Apollo's character, making him more than just a shining deity. You find yourself in a sunlit clearing, where Apollo's dual nature shines, brightest healer and harbinger of plague. It's a paradox that can't be ignored. Apollo's skill in medicine and healing is revered. He's the god who taught humans the art of curing diseases and performing surgeries. Temples dedicated to him often served as healing centers where priests acted as doctors, blending spiritual and physical remedies. Yet, the same god who brings life-saving light can also unleash deadly plagues with his arrows. When angered, Apollo doesn't just send a cold shoulder, he sends sickness that can wipe out entire populations. The balance between health and disease rests in his hands, a divine reminder of life's fragility. This contradictory role has led scholars to debate whether Apollo's association with plague came first, or if his healing powers were a later addition. Some argue that he was originally a god of sudden death, later softened into a healer figure as society evolved. Standing here, you sense the tension in Apollo's gaze, benevolent and terrifying, compassionate and relentless. He is light's bright and shadowed face, wrapped into one. The warm light of the sun feels different now, as if Apollo's glow has deepened into something more purposeful, almost regal. You step into the heart of his artistic domain, where poetry, music, and prophecy mingle like old friends at a symposium. This is the realm of the Muses, those 9 ethereal sisters who dance on the edges of creativity, whispering inspiration into mortal minds. Apollo is their leader, the conductor of this divine chorus. Picture him striding among them, his lyre at his side, each step setting the rhythm of creation. He doesn't just play music, he embodies it. His voice is said to calm tempests and charm even the most stubborn hearts. To the Greeks, he was the source of music, the art of the Muses, which included not just music, but poetry and dance too. But here's a quirky twist. The Muses weren't always 9. Some early traditions list just 3, or even fewer, making historians wonder how and why their number and personalities evolved. It's like the ancient equivalent of a boy band lineup that keeps changing until it hits perfection. Apollo's relationship with the Muses symbolizes something broader: civilization's triumph through art and order. He's a god who shapes chaos into melody, turning raw emotions into structured beauty. When you feel your heartbeat sync with his unseen rhythm, you're glimpsing the power of that transformation. However, Apollo's artistic side isn't all applause and laurel wreaths. He can be merciless to those who fail to honor his gifts properly. Remember the story of the satyr Marsyas. That musical showdown wasn't just about talent, it was about respect, or the lack thereof. Apollo's punishments serve as reminders that creativity demands humility. You realize that Apollo's light exposes not just physical truths, but artistic ones. Excellence requires dedication, and arrogance invites downfall. In the soft glow of his lyre, you're invited to listen and maybe learn. The scene shifts, and suddenly you're outside the sunlit temples, moving into the wilderness. Apollo's twin sister Artemis reigns here, though her influence often overlaps with his. While Apollo embodies civilization and order, Artemis holds the wild in her steady hands. Together, they form a divine balance between nature's freedom and human structure. Artemis, the eternal huntress, fiercely protects the untamed world. She's the guardian of animals, the moon, and young women on the threshold of adulthood. When you watch her move through the forests, it's like watching moonlight itself, silent, swift, and utterly sure. But don't let her sienna demeanor fool you. Artemis is known for her ruthless defense of purity and wilderness. Legends tell of mortals who crossed her path disrespectfully, only to face swift and merciless punishment. She's the goddess of transitions, from childhood to womanhood, from life to death, a liminal force who commands respect. Interestingly, the twins' relationship is sometimes depicted as competitive, especially regarding love interests and worshippers. Some ancient poets even suggest subtle tensions beneath their unity, like siblings vying for the spotlight. Historians still debate whether these portrayals reflect real religious shifts or poetic license. You begin to see how Apollo's and Artemis's domains complement and contrast, light and shadow, song and silence, city and forest. Together, they hold the balance of Greek spirituality. And just as you're absorbing this, a faint melody floats on the breeze, a reminder that Apollo's influence extends beyond marble halls into every corner of the ancient world. You're pulled back into the city now, where Apollo's influence touches daily life in surprising ways. It's not just temples and myths. It's the pulse of ancient Greek society. Apollo is woven into laws, medicine, politics, and even sports. Take the ancient athletic festivals. For example, the Pythian Games, held every 4 years at Delphi, were second only to the Olympics in prestige. Named after Apollo's victory over the Python, these games combined athletic competition with musical contests, a perfect reflection of the god's dual nature. Imagine the buzz of the crowd, the tension before a race or a lyre contest. Victors were crowned with laurel wreaths, a living symbol of Apollo's favor. These games weren't just sport, they were sacred rituals, binding communities and honoring divine order. Apollo was also seen as a protector of law and justice. His temples often functioned as courts, and his light symbolized truth and fairness. The idea was that no deceit could stand in his presence. This association gave him a role beyond the spiritual, a kind of divine guarantor of social order. But here's a fascinating detail. Some scholars suggest Apollo's role as a god of law might have absorbed earlier deities' functions. As Greek society evolved, his image blends elements from older gods of justice and healing, showing how myths adapt to cultural shifts. In your mind's eye, you see Apollo not just as a distant god, but as a force shaping everyday life, from the oath sworn before a trial to the healing prayer whispered in a sick room. Yet, even in this, the tension remains. Apollo's light reveals and judges, but it also blinds and burns. To walk in his glow is to accept both grace and challenge, beauty and burden. You take a breath, feeling the weight of his duality settle around you, and you realize that following Apollo is never simple. It's a journey into light and shadow. The sun dips low as you stroll into the quieter corners of Apollo's story, where his influence stretches beyond Greece and into the far corners of the ancient world. You find yourself at the crossroads of cultures, where the god's image shifts like sunlight on water, sometimes clearer, sometimes refracted. Apollo's worship wasn't confined to Greek soil. His temples, myths, and symbols traveled across the Mediterranean, reaching into Asia Minor, Italy, and even Egypt. You imagine traders, soldiers, and pilgrims carrying stories of the radiant god into new lands, where he merged with local deities or inspired new ones. One fascinating example is the syncretism with the Egyptian god Horus, a sky god associated with the sun and protection. Some scholars argue that the Greeks recognized similarities between Horus and Apollo and incorporated elements from Egyptian religion into their own practices. This cultural blending shows how ancient religions were fluid, constantly evolving through contact and exchange. But this spreading influence wasn't always smooth. Different regions emphasized different aspects of Apollo. Some focused on his role as a healer, others on prophecy or music. This created a complex tapestry of beliefs that historians still work to untangle. You picture the bustling streets of Ephesus or Rhodes, where statues of Apollo stood side by side with local gods, each shrine a thread in the vast fabric of ancient spirituality. And through it all, Apollo's light shone, sometimes soft, sometimes blinding, guiding and challenging worshippers in equal measure. You lean in closer now, sensing a kitter, and more personal side of Apollo, his role as a healer and bringer of health. It's a paradox. You can't shake the same God who can unleash plague also teaches humans how to heal themselves. Temples dedicated to Apollo often functioned as early hospitals, where priests combined spiritual ritual with practical medicine. The famous sanctuary at Epidaurus, For instance, it was a center for healing that attracted visitors from across the ancient world. Here, supplicants would sleep in the Abaton, a sacred dormitory, hoping to receive dreams or visions from the god that would reveal their cure. Imagine the eerie silence, broken only by whispered prayers and the faint rustle of olive branches outside. The combination of faith and empirical knowledge creates a fascinating tension. Some modern historians still debate whether these healing rituals were effective due to divine intervention, psychological effects, or a mix of both. What's undeniable is Apollo's lasting legacy as the god of medicine, influencing the very roots of Western medical practice. You might smile at a quirky detail. Apollo's son Asclepius eventually becomes the god of medicine in his own right, symbolizing the transmission of knowledge from divine to mortal hands. His snake-entwined staff remains a symbol of healing to this day, though the confusion with a similar staff linked to Hermes has caused no end of medical logo debates. As you soak in this, you realize that Apollo's light isn't just about brightness, it's about illumination, the knowledge that cures, as well as reveals. The warm light shifts again, drawing you into a story of power, pride, and painful consequences. Apollo's beauty and charm have won many hearts, but his divine ego often sets him on collision courses with mortals and gods alike. One of the most famous tales involves the mortal musician, Marpessa, who captured Apollo's heart. But unlike the usual tale of irresistible god and helpless mortal, Marpessa challenges Apollo. She fears his eternal youth and the loneliness it brings. When Zeus offers her a choice between Apollo's immortal love or a mortal life with her husband, Marpessa chooses mortality. This story hints at deeper themes, the tension between eternal divine existence and the fleeting, bittersweet nature of human life. Apollo's light, brilliant as it is, cannot fully bridge that gap. Another myth that underscores Apollo's complex personality is his quarrel with the god Pan. In a musical contest judged by the mountain god Tmolus, Apollo's refined lyre music defeats Pan's rustic pipes. When King Midas foolishly sides with Pan, Apollo punishes him by giving him donkey ears, a vivid reminder that taste and judgment have consequences. These stories reveal Apollo's pride, a trait that sometimes borders on arrogance. Historians still debate whether these myths serve as cautionary tales about hubris or reflect historical rivalries among different cults and regions. Through all this, you sense a god who is dazzling yet flawed, whose radiant light casts shadows as sharp as it dazzles. His stories warn that beauty and power demand respect and humility. The day grows deeper, and now you find yourself walking through a different realm, one where Apollo's role as a bringer of civilization and order comes into sharper focus. Imagine bustling city-states like Athens or Corinth, where Apollo's temples stand as beacons of law, culture, and community. Apollo isn't just a distant god up in the heavens. He's the divine architect behind human order. His light illuminates not just the physical world, but the rules that govern society, the laws, the customs, the very idea of justice. Citizens gather at his temples to swear oaths, hoping to invoke his power to keep them honest. One historical fact you can't ignore is the establishment of the Delphic oracle's political influence. Leaders from across the Greek world consult Apollo's priestesses, hoping to gain divine sanction for wars, alliances, or loss. The god's prophetic power becomes a political tool, one that can legitimize power or condemn rulers. Yet, some scholars argue whether this political role was part of Apollo's original mythos or a later adaptation as Greek city-states grew more complex. Either way, Apollo's image as a god of order contrasts sharply with his wild, sometimes chaotic family ties. Here's a quirky detail: the ritual of the Omphalos stone at Delphi, said to mark the navel or center of the world, symbolically positions Apollo as the axis mundi, the pivot between heaven and earth, chaos and order. As you absorb this, you realize that Apollo's radiance isn't just about beauty or power, it's about balance, the fragile architecture that holds civilization together. As twilight falls, you're drawn toward Apollo's relationship with the arts, especially poetry and storytelling. His influence here feels intimate, like a whisper in the ear of a wandering bard beneath a starlit sky. Apollo is often called the god of musike, not just music, but the whole spectrum of arts inspired by the muses. Imagine poets reciting epic tales of gods and heroes, their verses flowing like a river of light. Apollo's presence sanctifies these stories, giving them divine authority and eternal life. One historical fact stands out: the Iliad and the Odyssey, those epic pillars of Western literature, were deeply influenced by the religious and cultural ideas centered around Apollo and the Muses. Their narratives are interwoven with references to divine inspiration, the struggle between fate and free will, and the power of spoken word. But here's a quirky twist. Some ancient scholars believed Apollo's lyre could literally control the emotions and even the weather. That's right, music as a cosmic force. It sounds like something out of a fantasy novel, but it's a testament to how deeply the Greeks revered his artistic gifts. Historians still debate the extent to which Apollo's role as an artistic muse influenced the development of Greek theatre and drama. Was he a patron of tragedy or comedy? The answer remains elusive. But his influence is undeniable. You feel a gentle hum of creativity rise around you, as if the very air is vibrating with Apollo's lyre, calling mortals to dream, to create, and to remember. The evening deepens, and now you step into Akita, a more mystical part of Apollo's story, the mysteries of the god's initiation and transformation rituals. These rites, performed by his followers, offer a glimpse into the spiritual experiences that ancient Greeks sought through devotion. One key practice was the Telesterian ceremonies, particularly at Eleusis, where initiates underwent profound rites, symbolizing death and rebirth, though more commonly associated with Demeter and Persephone. Apollo's role in some mystery cults emphasized purification, enlightenment, and the promise of renewal. Imagine standing in a darkened chamber, the flickering light of torches casting eerie shadows as initiates silently await divine revelation. These rituals blurred the line between mortal and divine, offering participants a taste of Apollo's transcendent light. A fringe tidbit: some ancient mystery cults linked Apollo with ecstatic trance states and even altered consciousness, a stark contrast to his usual image as the god of rational light. This paradox fascinates modern scholars, who still argue whether these practices influenced early forms of Greek religion or reflected local variations. You realize that Apollo's light isn't always clear and rational. It can also be wild, transformative, and deeply mysterious. This duality invites believers to journey inward, seeking not just knowledge, but profound change. As you linger in this twilight realm, if you understand that following Apollo is not just about seeing the world in light, it's about embracing the shadows that dance within it. You find yourself drifting into the vibrant world of festivals now, where Apollo's presence bursts forth in music, dance, and celebration. The Pythian games at Delphi are the centerpiece here, but Apollo's worship extended far beyond this grand event. You can almost hear the laughter, the rhythmic pounding of feet, the crackling of torches, and the resonant sounds of flutes and lyres. The Pythian Games were not just athletic competitions. They were a cultural extravaganza combining sports with artistic contests. Athletes raced, wrestled, and competed in chariot races, while musicians and poets battled for Apollo's favor. It's a perfect echo of Apollo's dual nature, strength and beauty, physical prowess and artistic mastery. A historical fact to savor here is that the Pythian Games were considered second only to the Olympics in prestige, highlighting Apollo's importance not just as a god of art and prophecy, but also as a patron of competition and excellence. But here's a quirky tidbit. The games included musical competitions where contestants played the lyre or sang hymns to Apollo, essentially making music a sport. Imagine getting a gold medal for a killer guitar solo. Historians still argue how seriously these musical contests were taken compared to the athletic ones. But you can bet Apollo was the ultimate judge. As you soak in the festive atmosphere, you sense the overwhelming energy, Apollo's light, electrifying the crowd, inspiring athletes to push their limits and artists to pour their souls into performance. It's a communal experience, a sacred moment where divine and human meet in joyous celebration. The festivities fade gently, and you're drawn into the quieter, more introspective sphere of Apollo's oracular power. Delphi's oracle isn't just a spectacle, it's a lifeline for entire states, a beacon of uncertain hope and cautious fear. You stand before the Pythia, the priestess, her voice trembling as she utters cryptic prophecies, the vapors swirling beneath her, clouding mortal understanding. Leaders and common folk alike hang on her words, desperate to decipher Apollo's will. It's a historical fact that Delphi was considered the omphalos, the navel of the world, marking the center of the earth and the universe. This symbolic geography elevated Apollo's oracle beyond mere superstition to a foundational pillar of Greek religion and politics. Yet, there's a fringe perspective that the oracle's trances were chemically induced by gases rising from the earth. A natural explanation for divine inspiration. Scholars still debate whether the Pythia's visions were mystical or physiological phenomena, or something in between. You feel the weight of expectation, the tension in the air thick with the desire for guidance. Apollo's light here is not gentle. It's a piercing force that demands honesty and courage. His words reveal destiny's threads, but never weave a simple tapestry. You realize that prophecy, like Apollo himself, is a complex dance of clarity and mystery. As the sun slips further down, your path leads to Apollo's family ties, complex, sometimes fraught, but always illuminating. His lineage connects him to some of the most significant figures in Greek mythology and religion. Apollo is the son of Zeus and Leto, born on the island of Delos, amid dramatic struggles. His birth is a tale of survival and determination, as Hera's jealousy forces Leto to wander until she finds a safe place to give birth. This story highlights themes of exile and triumph, common motifs in the gods' tales. What's interesting is how Apollo's birth ties him to both the sky through Zeus and the earth through Leto's connection to nature. This duality embodies his role as a mediator between worlds, bridging divine and mortal, heaven and earth. A quirky tidbit here is that Delos, once a floating island, was said to have been anchored by the gods to provide a stable birthplace. You almost imagine it bobbing gently on a celestial sea before being fixed in place. Historians still debate the significance of Apollo's birthplace and how his myths reflect historical cult practices. Was Delos a real religious center that shaped Apollo's identity? Or did the story evolve to unify various local traditions? Walking through these family stories, you feel Apollo's roots deepen, grounding his radiant light in ancient, earthy origins. The glow of Apollo's legacy stretches further as you explore his relationships beyond his immediate family alliances, rivalries, and romances that paint a vivid picture of his divine personality. These interactions reveal a god both charismatic and capricious, beloved and feared. You recall his passionate affair with the nymph Daphne, a story filled with urgency and heartbreak. Apollo's relentless pursuit contrasts sharply with Daphne's desperate flight. In a moment of divine intervention, Daphne transforms into a laurel tree, forever entwining Apollo's image with the laurel wreath, a symbol of victory and eternal honor. This myth encapsulates a recurring theme. Apollo's desires often collide with mortal will, raising questions about power and consent that resonate even today. Historians still debate whether these stories were moral lessons, religious allegories, or simple entertainment for ancient audiences. A quirky fact: the laurel's association with Apollo extended beyond symbolism. Victors in poetry, music, and athletic contests were crowned with laurel wreaths, literally wearing Apollo's rejected love as a badge of glory. As you picture Apollo standing beneath the branches of the laurel, you sense his longing and loss intertwined, his brilliance both radiant and tinged with sadness. You're drawn now into Apollo's role as a god of prophecy, not just through the Oracle of Delphi, but also through personal divination and dreams. This aspect of Apollo connects the divine to human fate in a deeply intimate way. In myth, Apollo's gift of foresight is both a blessing and a curse. He knows the threads of destiny, but cannot always change their course. His son Asclepius, the god of healing, inherits this knowledge, adding another layer to the family's divine gifts. One historical note: the practice of seeking dreams for guidance incubation was widespread in Apollo's temples. Worshippers would sleep in sacred spaces, hoping to receive healing or answers directly from the god in their dreams. This ritual blurs the line between divine intervention and psychological experience. A quirky tidbit: some believe Apollo's prophetic power was symbolized by his bow and arrows, which could shoot plagues or insight with equal precision. This duality embodies the unpredictable nature of fate. Historians still argue over the nature of Apollo's prophetic role. Was it primarily religious, political, or a combination? Either way, it shaped Greek culture's relationship with destiny and free will. You feel a quiet hum of anticipation, the sense that beneath the light of Apollo, the future is always unfolding, never fully known, always beckoning. The next phase of your journey takes you deeper into Apollo's connections with medicine and healing, not just as divine patron, but as a complex figure, balancing destruction and restoration. Apollo's ability to send plagues, as in the Iliad, contrasts sharply with his role as a healer. This duality is embodied in the story of his son, Asclepius, who pushes the boundaries of mortality by resurrecting the dead, challenging the god's order. The sanctuary at Epidaurus, dedicated to Asclepius, but deeply connected to Apollo, becomes a center of ancient medical practice and religious healing. Pilgrims journey there seeking cures, combining faith with early forms of clinical treatment. A historical fact: the snake-entwined rod associated with Asclepius remains a global symbol of medicine today, showing the enduring influence of Apollo's lineage on healing traditions. A quirky note: some ancient remedies involved rituals that seem bizarre by modern standards, like sleeping in sanctuaries surrounded by snakes. Scholars still debate the effectiveness and symbolism of these practices. As you contemplate this balance of harm and healing, you realize Apollo embodies the paradox of life itself. the power to both wound and mend, to bring darkness and then restore light. The dusk settles in deeper as you explore Apollo's compelling role as a god of light and truth, not just in the literal sense of the sun illuminating the world, but as a metaphor for enlightenment and moral clarity. His radiant presence chases away darkness, ignorance, and deceit, guiding mortals toward wisdom and justice. You feel the warmth of the sun on your skin, a simple reminder of Apollo's physical association with light. Yet, beyond this tangible glow lies a profound symbolism, light as knowledge, as revelation, as the uncovering of hidden truths. Ancient Greeks often invoked Apollo when seeking honesty, whether in personal matters or public affairs. An important historical fact here is that Apollo was considered the god of prophecy and truth, alongside being the god of light. His oracular role at Delphi was intertwined with this identity. People didn't just seek vague predictions. They sought the ultimate truth about themselves and their fate. But there's a quirky, slightly unsettling detail. Apollo's light can be blinding, metaphorically and mythologically. His piercing truth exposes not only virtue, but also shame, guilt, and hidden sins. This dual nature causes historians to debate how the ancient Greeks viewed Apollo as a benevolent guide or a harsh moral judge. You imagine an Athenian politician sweating under Apollo's glare during a trial, hoping the god's light would shine on their innocence. It's a heavy kind of illumination, not always easy to bear. As the shadows retreat under Apollo's brightness, you understand that this light is not comfort, it's confrontation. And sometimes, the harshest truths bring the deepest clarity. As night begins to fall, your journey takes you into Apollo's Kheta, more poetic dimension, the god as a muse, inspiring poets, artists, and musicians to reach beyond the ordinary. His touch awakens creativity, a force as vital as breath itself. You envision a lone poet under the stars, their voice rising in a hymn to the muses, seeking Apollo's blessing. His divine influence isn't just about technical skill, it's about that spark of genius, the mysterious flash of inspiration that moves a song or story from mere words to something transcendent. Historically, the arts under Apollo's patronage were central to Greek education and culture, the Moussaike encompassing music, poetry, and dance was seen as essential to the cultivation of a well-rounded citizen. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some ancient festivals, like the Pythian Games, included musical competitions, judged not just on technical skill, but on how well contestants captured Apollo's divine spirit. Imagine a rap battle, judged by a god talk, about high stakes. Yet historians still argue about how literally the ancients believed in Apollo's creative influence. Was it divine possession, metaphor, or a way to honor the mysterious forces behind artistic genius? The debate remains open, feeling the gentle pulse of inspiration. You realize Apollo's light is not just about knowledge, but also about beauty, a reminder that truth and art are intertwined. You're drawn now into the often overlooked complexity of Apollo's darker side, his capacity for anger, punishment, and destruction. Though a god of light and order, Apollo's wrath could be swift and devastating. Recall the story of the Niobids, children of Queen Niobe, who mocked Leto's motherhood. Apollo, alongside his twin sister Artemis, punishes Niobe's hubris by killing her children. A grim reminder of the consequences of disrespecting the gods. This myth illustrates Apollo's role as an enforcer of divine justice. His light, while illuminating, also burns away arrogance and false pride. Historians still debate whether these tales were meant to maintain social order or to explain natural disasters and tragedies. A quirky fact: Apollo's arrows symbolize both healing and plague. He can send disease with one breath and cure it with another. This duality is part of the god's mystique, powerful, unpredictable, and awe-inspiring. You feel a chill as you imagine Apollo's radiant light shifting suddenly to a scorching blaze, punishing with the same intensity as it blesses. His story warns that light, while vital, can also consume. This complexity makes Apollo not just a symbol of brightness, but of balance between creation and destruction, mercy and judgment, order and chaos. The dusk deepens, and you begin to feel the full weight of Apollo's role as the god of light, not just sunlight, but the profound, sometimes unsettling illumination of truth itself. This isn't just about the warmth on your skin or the breaking dawn. It's a metaphor that pulses through Greek thought like a heartbeat. Apollo's radiance symbolizes knowledge, clarity, and the revealing of hidden realities that many would rather keep in shadow. Picture a sunbeam slicing through a dense forest, beautiful, yes, but unforgiving in how it exposes every leaf, every spiderweb, every flaw in the bark. This is the kind of light Apollo casts on the human soul and society. He is the god who burns away lies, illusions, and hypocrisy, exposing what lies beneath. His light doesn't always comfort. Sometimes it blinds. Imagine an accused politician under Apollo's glare, every deception made visible, his voice shaking with fear, because the god's truth is a force that neither falters nor forgives. Historically, Apollo's association with truth was institutionalized through his oracle at Delphi, which was considered the ultimate source of divine insight. It wasn't just a poetic metaphor. Citizens and kings sought guidance in Apollo's temple because they believed that in his light, the ultimate truths of justice and fate were revealed. Apollo was not a gentle beacon, but a sharp-edged sword cutting through uncertainty and pretense. Here's a quirky tidbit. Apollo's harsh light was sometimes feared almost as much as it was revered. Ancient texts describe his gaze as literally scorching those who defied him or told lies. The idea that truth could hurt this much physically and emotionally leaves you wondering if the Greeks had a different relationship with honesty than we do today. Historians still argue whether Apollo was primarily a benevolent guide toward wisdom, or a stern judge who punished human folly and sin with unrelenting severity. This debate reveals the multifaceted nature of Apollo's light. It is both gift and challenge, comfort and confrontation. As you stand in the fading daylight, you grasp that following Apollo means embracing this complex illumination, not just celebrating the light, but learning to endure its intensity. As the night draws near, your senses tune into a quieter, more intimate aspect of Apollo, the god of artistic inspiration and creative genius. Imagine yourself as a solitary poet beneath the vast, star-studded sky, reaching upward in hope and reverence for a spark of divine fire that might transform your words into something eternal. This is the realm where Apollo's influence is subtle yet profound. Apollo, patron of the Musicae, which includes music, poetry, dance, and all creative arts, was the source of the divine inspiration that moved human souls to create beauty and meaning. This was not just about talent or practice. It was about a mystical connection, an almost otherworldly muse that possessed artists and gifted them with moments of brilliance. You can almost hear the delicate strum of Apollo's lyre echoing in the night air. Each note, a thread, weaving the fabric of culture. Historically, Apollo's role as the artistic muse was central to Greek society. The arts were not mere entertainment, but a vital part of education and civic life. Young Greeks studied music and poetry as training for the mind and spirit, and competitions like those at the Pythian Games celebrated these talents alongside athletic feats. This fusion of physical and artistic excellence reflected Apollo's comprehensive patronage. Here's a quirky detail. Some ancient accounts suggest that Apollo's lyre was so enchanting it could tame wild animals, move mountains, and even affect the weather. While it sounds like something straight out of a fantasy novel, this belief illustrates how deeply the Greeks revered the transformative power of art inspired by Apollo. Yet historians still debate how literally to take Apollo's artistic influence. Was it understood as divine possession, metaphor for creative process, or a religious framework to elevate artists' social status? These questions highlight the mysterious and often ineffable nature of inspiration. You feel the night around you soften with Apollo's touch, a gentle reminder that creativity is a form of light, less blinding, more comforting, but no less vital. Under his watch, art becomes a sacred act, a bridge between the human and the divine. Section 24. The darkness deepens further as you enter the more shadowy, fearsome domain of Apollo, the god of wrath, punishment, and destructive power. This side of Apollo is far less talked about in bedtime stories, but no less essential. His radiant light, which brings truth and healing, also burns with unforgiving fury when provoked. Remember the tragic tale of Niobe, whose arrogance and disrespect toward Apollo's mother, Leto, led to a devastating punishment. Apollo and his twin sister Artemis unleashed their arrows to slay Niobe's children, a grim reminder that divine justice is swift and unyielding. This story isn't just mythic drama, it's a cautionary tale about hubris, respect, and the limits of mortal pride. Apollo's arrows are a fascinating symbol of this duality. They represent his power to both heal and harm. In the Iliad, Apollo sends plague upon the Greek army, while in other stories, he acts as a protector and healer. This capacity to embody opposing forces makes him a god of balance, but also unpredictability. A quirky fact that might raise your eyebrow: Apollo was sometimes depicted as a god of sudden death, striking down enemies or those who offended the gods without warning. His arrows were feared as much as they were revered. The idea that the god of light could also bring darkness and death challenges any simplistic notion of Apollo as merely benevolent. Historians still debate how these contradictory aspects of Apollo were reconciled in ancient worship. Did the Greeks see him as a moral enforcer, a cosmic balance keeper, or something altogether more complex? The dual nature of his power invites endless interpretation. Standing at this threshold between light and shadow, you feel the tension inherent in Apollo's story, the knowledge that power and mercy, creation and destruction, are forever intertwined. His light is not always gentle. It can scorch, punish, and remind mortals of their fragile place in the cosmos. The evening deepens, and your path winds into the rich symbolism of Apollo as a god of music and poetry. But not just in a general sense here. You encounter the intricate ways his artistic patronage shaped Greek cultural identity and personal expression. Apollo's influence wasn't limited to a lofty concept of creativity. It was woven into the very fabric of daily life, rituals, and public ceremonies. Imagine the vibrant scenes of ancient Athens, where musicians played the lyre in symposiums, poets recited epic verses, and dancers performed at festivals dedicated to the gods. Apollo was the invisible presence in these moments, inspiring the rhythm of the music, the cadence of the poetry, and the grace of movement. His lyre's strings seemed to echo the heartbeat of the city itself. A historical fact grounds this vivid imagery: the moussaik, the combined arts of music, poetry, and dance was a core component of Greek education, seen as essential for cultivating a balanced and virtuous citizen. Apollo's role as patron of these arts made him a god of not only personal inspiration, but also social cohesion and moral guidance. But here's a quirky detail: to chew on some ancient myths suggest Apollo's music could literally control nature, taming wild beasts, or even calming storms. While this may sound like fantasy, it reflects how deeply the Greeks connected artistic mastery to cosmic order and divine harmony. Historians still argue about how literal these beliefs were, and how much Apollo's artistic symbolism influenced the development of Western music and poetry. Was he a mythic figure representing universal artistic ideals? Or did his cult actively shape cultural practices? As you absorb these threads, you realize Apollo's music is more than sound. It's a bridge between mortal experience and divine transcendence, a channel for light and order in a chaotic world. From music's gentle sway, your journey shifts to Apollo's powerful and often paradoxical role as a god of healing and disease, a domain where light and shadow intermingle most starkly. Apollo's relationship with health is complex. He is both the bringer of plague and the harbinger of cure. You stand at the threshold of sanctuaries, like Epidaurus, where the cult of Asclepius, Apolloson, flourished. Pilgrims arrived with hopes of miraculous healing, blending faith, ritual, and what we might now call early medicine. The ancient world didn't separate science from spirituality as neatly as we do. A historical anchor here is the snake-entwined rod of Asclepius, a symbol still synonymous with medicine today, demonstrating the enduring legacy of Apollo's healing lineage. The snakes, shedding their skin, represented renewal and regeneration, mirroring the god's power to restore life. Now, for a quirky tidbit, some healing rituals involved sleeping in the temple's sacred abaton, where patients hoped to receive divine dreams or visitations that would guide their recovery. It's like ancient therapeutic hypnosis, mixed with a side of divine mystery. Scholars still debate how much of this healing was psychosomatic, placebo, or genuinely effective by ancient standards. The blending of myth, faith, and medicine in Apollo's cult illustrates the Greek effort to understand life, death, and recovery in holistic terms. As you reflect on this dual nature, you see Apollo as a god embodying the fragile balance of human health, a reminder that light can both harm and heal, often in ways we barely understand. The night deepens, drawing you into the fascinating political dimension of Apollo's influence, where religion, power, and governance intertwine. Apollo was not only a god of art and healing, but also a potent symbol of order, law, and civic unity. You picture the ancient Greek city-states, where leaders invoked Apollo to legitimize their rule and seek divine approval. His oracle at Delphi was a critical institution, consulted on matters ranging from war strategy to colonization efforts. Apollo's voice shaped the destiny of peoples, not just individuals. A historical fact, the Delphic oracle functioned as a kind of divine senate, influencing political decisions across Greece. Even powerful rulers deferred to Apollo's ambiguous yet authoritative pronouncements, underscoring the god's immense socio-political power. A quirky note: some scholars suggest that Delphi's political influence was as much about controlling information and maintaining power structures as it was about genuine divine insight. The ambiguity of Apollo's oracles, cryptic and open to interpretation, allowed political leaders to claim divine sanction while maneuvering as they pleased. Historians still argue over the extent to which Apollo's cult was a tool of political manipulation versus a sincere religious institution. Either way, Apollo's light in the political arena was a double-edged sword, casting illumination, but also shadows of control and intrigue. You feel the weight of Apollo's presence here, not just as a god of beauty and healing, but as an enduring force, shaping the very foundations of society and power. The night is deep, and you find yourself drawn to Apollo's role as a god of order and harmony, not just in the grand, cosmic sense, but within the delicate balance of the natural world and human society. Apollo's light isn't just about illumination, it's about structure, rhythm, and the laws that keep chaos at bay. Imagine the precise movements of the stars in the night sky, the regular beating of a drum in a ritual dance, or the measured cadence of a poet's verse. All of these are reflections of Apollo's domain. His influence extends to music, mathematics, and even medicine, where balance and proportion are key. Historically, Apollo was seen as a guarantor of cosmos, the order and harmony of the universe. His cult emphasized moderation and balance, ideals central to Greek philosophy and ethics. The idea that all things have a proper place and measure is embodied in his figure. Here's a quirky detail. Some ancient depictions show Apollo holding a bow in one hand and a laurel branch in the other, symbols of both war and peace, destruction and victory. This duality reflects the delicate balance Apollo maintains between opposing forces. Scholars still debate whether Apollo's image as a god of order was primarily philosophical, religious, or political, but his enduring symbolism suggests a timeless ideal. You realize that Apollo's light, in its purest form, is the gentle but firm hand that keeps the world spinning steadily. As you edge closer to the end of this journey, you come face to face with the lasting legacy of Apollo in art and culture, how his image, myths, and symbols have been reinterpreted through the centuries and continue to resonate today. You might recognize Apollo's likeness from Renaissance paintings, where artists revived classical themes and portrayed him as the embodiment of ideal beauty, rationality, and divine inspiration. His figure appears in everything from neoclassical sculpture to modern music festivals bearing his name. Historically, Apollo's legacy extended beyond ancient Greece into Roman religion and then into Western cultural imagination. His stories inspired poets like Keats and painters like Poussin, embedding his light deep into the artistic heritage of the West. A quirky note, the Apollo space program, named after the Greek god, is a modern tribute to his association with light and knowledge, humans reaching for the stars under his watchful, symbolic gaze. It's an ironic twist that a god who once controlled the sun now lends his name to missions, exploring the darkness of space. Historians still debate how much of Apollo's original mythology influenced these later cultural revivals, versus how much was reshaped by changing ideals of beauty and heroism. Nevertheless, his enduring presence speaks to a human yearning for clarity, harmony, and creative spirit. You feel a quiet awe, sensing that Apollo's light, whether in myth or metaphor, still guides seekers of truth, beauty, and knowledge today. Now, as your journey nears its end, if you slow your pace and reflect on the many facets of Apollo, you've encountered light and shadow, healing and harm, art and prophecy, order and chaos. Apollo isn't just a figure from dusty old stories. He's a living symbol of human aspiration, contradiction, and wonder. You imagine sitting beneath the laurel tree, feeling the soft rustle of leaves and the fading warmth of the sun, letting the complex light of Apollo wash over you gently. His story invites you to embrace life's paradoxes, to find balance amid turmoil, inspiration amid doubt, and truth amid mystery. Historically, Apollo's worship was as much about personal connection as public ceremony, blending fear, reverence, and love in a rich, spiritual tapestry. His presence reminded the ancient Greeks and reminds us that life is a dance between light and dark, order and chaos, knowledge and mystery. As you close your eyes, you sense Apollo's gentle breath in the evening breeze, a whisper urging you to seek your own light, to create, heal, and dream. You probably won't survive all of Apollo's myths without some dizzying twists. But that's part of the fun. So before you drift off, I remember in the glow of his stories, you're never really alone. Now, dim the lights completely, letting the quiet of the night seep into every corner of your mind. Feel the gentle fading of Apollo's radiant light, softening into a calm twilight that cradles you like a gentle lullaby. The sharp edges of his stories blur into smooth, flowing rivers of warmth and peace. Allow yourself to breathe slowly and deeply, as the warmth of the sun you imagined earlier turns into the tender embrace of dusk. The laurel leaves rustle softly in a breeze you almost hear, a natural rhythm echoing the balance Apollo embodies. There is no rush here, only the steady, soothing pulse of the cosmos. Remember that every contradiction you've encountered in Apollo's tales, the fury and the healing, the prophecy and the mystery, reflects the rhythms of your own life. Light and dark dance together, and in this balance, there is safety and beauty. As your thoughts slow and your body relaxes, I know that this journey through myth is not just a story, but a gift, a quiet reminder that even in the darkest night, light endure, and sometimes it comes from within you. Let your mind drift gently now, floating on the soft hum of ancient songs and the promise of new dreams. Sleep well, wrapped in the gentle glow of Apollo's light, ready to greet the dawn with fresh eyes.